The Bounty Hunters. "My turn now?" the Australian boy says as she walks in. He's wary of her, probably a practiced talent due to his birth nation, although why a man whose people's military lost to birds is trusted with a firearm she doesn't know. He's technically facing away from her, but it's clear that she can be seen out of the corner of the man's eye. Officer Shield is sticking closer to her now, having correctly judged her as the biggest problem on either ship, which was useful to her as keeping her eye on the alien woman would allow her to test the sort of attitude the galaxy has to such things. Everything your enemy does teaches you about them. "I'd like to see a pop gun," she states, and he slowly turns to her and clearly looks over her before shrugging. "All right, I can do that. Just let me finish putting this back together and I'll bring one out," he says. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Tell me, how functional are these weapons?" If you want to reduce anything smaller than a skyscraper to a fine mist, then they can deliver. Things that size are 1 or 2 shots away from death. Get even bigger and it's only poking holes, so you have to be careful where you put the hole. And their rate of fire? Push yourself and you can get 10 a minute. Actually try to hit your target and you slow to 6 or less. They're breech-loaded, hand-fed, and the ammo is custom-made. Each gun has only 10 pieces of available ammunition at a time. If you need more than that, then you're facing something you should be using the chain breaker itself to fight. "Interesting," she says as he slips the casing onto the weapon he's handling and fastens it into place with ease. "Now I have a question for you, Miss Observer, or perhaps Madam Spy." "Lady Interrogator will suffice. I've spent my life dredging up the truth from the obstinate." "Fair enough. My question is simple. How many of the original Dauntless crew do you think are spies?" "Pardon?" "Well, it's a simple enough question. How much of the Dauntless was sent out to be at some level a spy for their nation of origin? Numbers or percentiles will suffice." "Since you're asking the question, I can assume the number is something you consider absurd, so I assume it's within 10 points of 100%, roughly 125%. A lot of soldiers have more than one nationality and foreign powers tried to recruit. Literally everyone was approached either openly or subtly to try and swing the mission into the favor of one nation or another." "I can believe it," Madam Stepanova admits. "Do you want to know how we solved it?" Some heroic speech from the semi-divine Admiral Cistern where rays of holy sunlight poured out of his nose as he declared the righteousness of this holy crusade? Madam Stepanova asks, and J3 snorts in amusement. The armadillo woman that is Officer Shield holds a hand over her mouth to keep back the amusement. "Almost, except it came out of his ears." J3 jokes as he puts the weapon away into its spot and straps it in. That causes the officer to actually let a few giggles out, as no doubt the mental image is a bit much for the girl. "Why are you strapping it in? It's not going to float away." 4 months of good habits that stuck, J3 says with a grin. He then stands up and his small work table sinks into the floor and is followed by the stool he's sitting on. "Come on." She follows him further into the room and he taps a hidden button on the further wall and it retracts into the floor, revealing that the room is twice its actual size. "Is there a particular reason for that, or was it there when you got the ship?" Madam Stepanova can't help but notice that Officer Shield is now visibly stern and her body language has turned stiff and aggressive. She's seeing something she really doesn't like. "Both. There are a lot of secret rooms and such around the ship, and we use them to store the more dangerous things and have emergency fallback positions in case the chain breaker is ever boarded. The ones in the armories hide the gunsmithing stations and the more dangerous weapons, including chemical, explosive, and artillery-grade toys. Basically, if it's not something we can pry out of the hands of an enemy, we stash it out of sight." "What do you mean by chemical weapons?" Officer Shield demands. That she's completely ignored the implications of a group of bounty hunters having explosives and artillery is downright fascinating. "Pepper spray, tear gas. Some of our more aggressive smoke grenades cause too much damage to most races. None of them are lethal to humans, but most races are very vulnerable to these things. So they sit around collecting dust in case we need to play with something on our level, or God forbid a human goes rogue. I'm going to need a sample of each, Officer Shield says with a frown, and a canister of pepper spray, a tear gas grenade, and a heavy smoke grenade are all placed in a small bag and held out for her. That bag was ready for this. We all figured it was inevitable, and I'm a big believer in getting things over with sooner rather than later, J3 says before walking to the back and pulling out a gigantic weapon that he clearly strained somewhat to carry back to them, and then a series of tables rise up and he places the gigantic monster onto it. Meet the pop gun. It will pop your shoulder right out of its socket, and that's if it doesn't pop your ears inside out from the sound of the blast. It looks to me like you ripped the main turret off a tank and then brought in a mutated motorcycle seat to cushion the recoil, Madame Stepanova remarks. Yay, these things are monsters, and it probably weighs more than you do, ma'am. And one of these is enough to kill a Carnex? Officer Shield asks in a slightly awed tone. Two, actually. The first shot shatters its axiom-infused armored scales, and the second one kills the beast. Nearly shit myself to see that gigantic thing just get angry when we fired a goddamn hypersonic artillery shell into its chest. Thankfully, the second one managed the job. But there was a moment I was really worried. I can imagine there are few things more frightening than what you thought was a killing blow being outright ignored, Madame Stepanova notes from experience. Thankfully, when its very angry mate showed up a few moments later, we had already reloaded and knew to double tap it in the heart. There was a keening noise in my ears for a week after that, but it paid well, and it's a hell of a story and trophy. I've got one of the teeth. What did you do with it? Officer Shield asks curiously. It's interesting that she would focus on the trophy of a vicious animal. Perhaps she has a history with Carnexes. Nothing yet. I'm not much for carving things, and my creativity goes more for wordplay and the occasional trick shot. Interesting. I'd have thought your interest would be more with, what are they called, didgeridoos? I don't know. You're Russian. That mean your blood is 40% vodka? He answers back right away. Wordplay, yay right. The boy's far more aware and much more vicious than mere wordplay. He's poking back, which is good, a fine trait in a sniper. I think I like you, boy. Tell me, how widespread are these pop guns? We sent the designs back to the Dauntless, and making a couple is our go-to gift when a new captain is assigned a ship. This means that they're exclusively in human or human-friendly hands. I don't know the exact numbers, though. All told, these are fairly easy to make in any moderately supplied mechanical workshop. You just need the designs. Are these bangers and ablators? You men are really stocking up. Officer Shield notes, and J3 snorts. This is just one of many armories. We have 5 other actual proper armories and a lot of the fallback points I mentioned before. We have lasers, plasma, and human kinetics at the very least at each of them, and part of our minimal dress includes a knife and a pistol at the absolute least. If it's the least, then what are you packing? Madame Stepanova asks, and J3 holds up a finger and steps away from the pop gun. He pushes up his sleeves and then reaches into his pants cargo pockets before pausing. Someone start a timer. I want to see how good at this I've gotten. All right, go, Officer Shield says a moment later with her communicator out, and he erupts into a blur of movement as he pulls out the components of a large sniper rifle out of his pockets and assembles it without looking at it until he slots in a small link of ammunition. And done, he says, now holding the completed rifle. How long did it take for me to put this beauty together? 13.5 seconds, Officer Shield replies, and J3 pumps his fist. Time's up from my old record. Nice. May I? Madame Stepanova asks, holding out her hands. He regards her for a few moments and considers. She notices his eyes flickering too under her armpits and towards her boots. He smirks knowingly and hands over the rifle. He spotted her weapons. "This is lighter than I assumed," she says, taking it and examining it more closely. There are strange etchings in the weapon that appear to be filled with strangely reflecting brass. Kutha? She had read about the brass-like alloy that could contain and channel axiom. This gun is effectively magical from her understanding of it. She doesn't like that. She runs her thumb over one of the symbols and senses something there, something unfamiliar but undeniable. She focuses on the sensation, and it's like a dam breaking. It's all around her, a swirling miasma of blazing movement in all directions, a mass of swirling something else from the direction of the officer, and something firm and stern pulling inwards and filling the space the gun holds. But it's not crowding everything, and it both is and isn't a color and a sound and a sensation. She vaguely feels herself stumble as she refuses to back down from the challenge, and a hand helps steady her as another pulls away the rifle. She's quickly guided to a stool upon which to sit, but that just has more of the sensation as the mechanical movement is inundated with the sensation. It's everywhere, except it's not really in the hand that guided her. She opens her eyes again and finds that she was gasping on air with J3, an Officer Shield watching her in concern. J3 in particular is still steadying her with his hand on her shoulder. "You know, when you first start messing with axiom, it's best to smart small rather than trying to sense everything. An entirely new sense is far, far too much to take in all at once." J3's rebuke is gentle and understanding. "Lord in heaven, I was warned, but that wasn't enough." Madame Stepanova notes as Officer Shield just stares at her. "What did I do this time? You are so numb to it, so angry and hurt, but you can't even feel it." Welcome to one of the most automatic and basic uses of axiom that non-humans have. They can sense each other's emotions through it. And if you're channeling the axiom or going too deep into it to take a harder look like you were doing, then they can sense yours too. They pay more attention to it than your body language and facial expression. "Yes, I had been informed of that. So you sensed my emotions, did you? You can't read the past from it, but you can get a good idea of the person. What I sensed didn't surprise me in the slightest," J3 admits. "So you can do it too." She accuses him with narrowed eyes. "I'm a sniper. It's my job to pay attention to everything around us with the finest of detail. So's Tang, for that matter. I'll wager he sensed your little revelation as well." "And what exactly did you sense, boy?" "Armor, old and battered. Held in place for so long that at times it's all there is, isn't it?" "You just said you can't read the past, boy." There's an undeniable amount of resignation drenching that armor, almost as much as it's a beaten and clearly old thing. "You've led a miserable life." "I've led a purposeful life in service to my country and my people." Her tone does not allow questioning. "I'm just telling you what I sensed, what people sense of you when you're exposed in the axiom. I'm not judging. You've lived through times I can only have explained to me and will likely never understand," J3 says as he picks up his rifle in order to change the topic. "These markings on the side allow for reinforcement. The one at the end of the stock absorbs recoil, allowing me to shoot for hours without bruising. Finally, here near the end is a trick that we were taught from some friends in the EFL, a sound-canceling array. This weapon is dead silent, effective out to several kilometers, and is both comfortable to fire and borderline indestructible. She's my baby. A handsome weapon, young man. I've known people who would have done terrible, terrible things to get their hands on something that powerful." "I believe you, although I want you to see something," J3 says as he indicates the markings on his own rifle and then indicates the pop gun. She raises an eyebrow and rises out of the stool. She examines the massive weapon and notices numerous little Kutha additions. The markings indicating reinforcement are there, as is the cushioning one and the silence symbols. Huge numbers of them. Do they work? You either scale up the number of axiom totems to work together or use a bigger one or a more refined one. We're not the best at making the totems, but we can mass produce like monsters. They work. So, this man-portable piece of artillery is utterly silent, she asks, as her mind whirls at the possibilities. Yes, but the shockwave from it going off feels like being punched in the everything. The Earth Foreign Legion, or EFL, gave the whole of humanity a kiss on the lips when they produced that totem design. Easy to make, practical as all hell, and perfectly legal. Is it now? Madame Stepanova asks Officer Shield, who looks uncomfortable but nods. Yes, it is. Axiom-based enhancements to weapons are only restricted if they're designed to cause undue harm and suffering. These ones merely protect the weapons and their user. Perfectly fine. There's also the fact that most alien weapons burn. Almost every plasma gun can be reconfigured into a temporary flamethrower, and plasma is one of the most popular type of weapon there is. J3's voice carries something deeply disapproving. It's practical. Officer Shield defends it. It's a horrible way to kill someone, and it's so common in the galaxy that there's not a single culture that has a leg to stand on. There's a reason why humans are legally allowed to carry kinetic weapons anywhere,